Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the EPIC conference. Today, I have Grant Crossman from the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo, and actually much farther reaching platforms, arenas than that. He's from the Canadian market, but very influential, certainly north of the border. And I was just there at the 2025 CRBE and was astounded at the volume, the professionalism, the presentation. It was a fantastic experience. And we wanted to bring Grant on today to join us and talk about reaching the masses with reptiles. Please welcome to the EPIC stage from CRBE, Grant Crossman. Grant, how you doing today?
Good, Adam. How are you today?
I am good. It's good to see you again. We were just hanging out in person, and now we're hanging out here virtually. Everything well?
Everything's great.
How How was this year's CRBE for you?
It was good. It was positive because a lot of future hobbyists were seen coming and going, which is, what the key of every event is, no matter what expo across North America is. It's about seeing the future come in and go out. So it was nice. It was great.
When you say the future, is that age-based, new faces-based, questions, newbie kind of questions? How do you see future hobbyists versus current hobbyists when you're at your shows?
Well, it's 30 plus years my wife and I have been doing this. Yeah. So seeing the evolution of the educational component at the shows is always outstanding. And when you see families walking out with new setups, new starter kits, new terrariums, that to me is a seed.
Yeah.
A seed for the hobby, a seed for the industry. It's hard to say that after 30 plus years, it's gone from the word hobby to industry now. The dollar value being spent in the US and the Canadian markets it's great. It's established the reptile community as a mainstream pet. And that's been our goal for decades. And I believe that we are very close, if not achieving that, across Canada as well as I see it in the US happening.
Right. What was talk a little bit about the vision and the evolution of CRBE. I know you could probably talk for the whole session about that, but if there's sort of an elevator pitch of kind of where it began and where it's at now, and maybe even a little bit looking into the future, what does the vision entail there?
Yeah, I can go all the way back, again, more than 3 decades ago, visiting my first Wayne Hill show, which was the iconic foundation of many hobbyists in North America, and then coming up and starting the local shows. We have basically a local show, community show every 6 to 8 weeks here in Toronto, largest capital in Canada. And what we wanted to do a number of years ago, over 16 years ago, my wife and I create an event here that brings in from around the world all the leaders. We brought in guest speakers throughout the years. We brought in influential individuals, zoological, academic, all different levels, because we wanted people to, again, accept the world of reptiles as the mainstream pets they are. Take away the focus of specialty pets, but more so mainstream, because ultimately we're seeing that in the industry growth itself. So the growth basically started with the first ever, we started doing the Toronto Reptile Symposiums. We had some great guest speakers come up, old school conferences well before the world of interweb, forums, Facebook, Palm Street, stuff like that. So ultimately, we had the greats of like Dave Barker, Al Carden, Ron Trempers, so many great people coming up that were like really iconic in the reptile community back in the days when we were all waiting for, the next book to come out and get shipped up to us, or the next Reptiles magazine to show what was happening in the world ahead of us. So we progressively grew that to where we have today's Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo that now basically surpasses 145,000 square feet. We have just over 260 vendor booths of 10 by 10 square feet. And the premise is education. Education will promote conservation, which will promote captive producing, which will promote great pet companions and households. So you can speak to a lot of our vendors. It's not so much the sales on the floor; it's about the future sales, the future engagement. So that's what we really, strive for more than anything. It's worked. It's worked really well.
I would say you mentioned 145,000 square feet. The structure was a portion of a bigger pet expo for this particular event. Can you talk a little bit about the crossover and define that people that come for dogs wander into the reptile area and go, oh, that's cool? I mean, how does that, is there a synergy there? How does that work?
Pets are its own synergy itself. I always have a great saying, and people look at me when we do some advocacy work or talk to politicians. It's like, pet people are pet people because we're really not great people. A lot of us will, go to our reptile room, our aquatic room, or our bird room and stuff because that's who we would rather engage in a lot of times. And the ability to, again, emphasize mainstream pets, whether it's fish, reptiles, avian, avicultural birds, we're all mainstream pets, dog and cat. So it only made sense that we brought together the Reptile Breeders Expo with one of our fall pet consumer shows. And when I say consumer shows, it's mostly hard goods and educational. So the entire event itself was almost 310,000 square feet. So it was it was a significant portion of it. Yeah,
it's a massive building. Like I say, it was great to see. And for anybody curious, I mean, like you say, there's 145,000 square feet of reptiles. But I mean, you in the parking lot had like dock jumping for water dogs. They're like competitions and interactions and events going on. So it was a really great, it was a great scene and great to see. You talk about, I mean, you're the perfect person for this session because you talk about reaching people, advocacy, changing politics. I want to dig into that a little bit, but before that, where does the why come from? what's the drive? Why bother? I mean, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of, there's got to be easier ways to make a buck or more effective ways to make a buck that don't take up all of this. And I'm saying that a little tongue in cheek, and I'm saying it thankfully for what you do. But the fact is, most people won't trade their time, or when they do trade their time, they want something, financial. That's kind of why we have jobs and go to work and stuff. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. We do it because we're fortunate. We're blessed throughout the years having some great, strong businesses within the industry itself. For 30 plus years, my wife and I had a large wholesale distribution company up here that supplied 800 retail stores across the country with basic reptile feeders and products and stuff. But we want to give back, and we believe the community can be a lot stronger out there. And there is a return for every vendor. There's a return on the show, and then we give back to some of the advocacy groups more so than we do anything else. The drive is really seeing the community come together. It sounds really hokey, but at the end of the day, when the community comes together, there is no better success story for each other. Yeah. Whether it's for our crew flipping tables, putting drapes up, making sure animals are happy and families are happy walking through the door, to the vendor that's actually, again, securing that long-term relationship with that future family or possible breeder. At the end of the day, let's face it, it's a little bit easier for the newcomer hobbyist today to get into it because they're dealing with mostly captive produced animals. Right. As opposed to, we go back 25 years ago where everything was coming in imported, the acclimation process was a huge endeavor. Now you're seeing people get into it, and they're able to invest or diverse their family's times into creating a productive or reproductive group within their homes. So it's fun, it's encouraging, and it's a lot of great positive growth.
Do you find that the overwhelming amount of information on the internet, sometimes conflicting, is that overall a positive? I mean, you alluded to, I think the animals are probably undoubtedly healthier and better, however we want to quantify that. How do you find, or do you run into roadblocks with the information that people have? Do you find it's overall better? How do you navigate some of that?
That's a fun question. The internet offers let's circle it back to what the expos used to be. They used to be held in small legions, small church halls, right, small convention centers, community centers. Everybody got together, and you could shoot the stuff across the table, and it was fun. A few people would get a few pops into them. Next thing you know, that kind of embellishes or dilutes and stuff. Right. That's the internet, is what I share with everybody. Yeah, it's great information to read, but verbal, face-to-face body language is the best information to see and understand and digest. So we always encourage that more so. Absolutely. I'm an old book person. Mm-hmm. I love books. And I always tell everyone, try to get a book. Try to get a book and start from there, and then progress into the internet. Understand where the information is coming from. Research, and research. Make sure that you've really partnered, or you've kind of captured the interest of a vendor, a retailer, or somebody that's in there for the long term. I always tell vendors, if you come to one or two shows, unfortunately, you're a flash in the pan. Consistency and confidence with a repetitive vendor, that's what makes a difference. Because if I'm coming in, or we tell a family to come into a few events before they make that acquisition, know that breeder or vendor is going to be here for the long term. Right. And generally they are. Generally most of the vendors come in, they're in it for the long term.
There's in my own, not to make this about me, in my own podcast, I talk a lot about business, and so much of what you're saying actually sounds like really great business practice as well. What would you recommend or encourage people that are, even if it's a side hustle or a part-time business, or the vendors like you're talking about, they care enough to come out and vend and to build a brand and whatnot. How much of education and outreach should be part of their business model?
It's got to be a huge part.
Okay.
I think it has to be a massive part, because at the end of the day, as a breeder, you're reproducing a life. You're reproducing another form of life, a reptile, bird, or whatever. You need to be committed to that life and that partnership with that family member for a lifetime. Basically, at the end of the day, everyone goes through some troubled times. Fortunate people live their life happily ever after. But in the event that, that family 2 or 3 years down the line comes across some hardship, you need to be able to accountable for that animal, because that goes a long way. Because that family will say, "Hey, Adam helped us out."
Right.
And they're talking to the neighbors, contact Adam. It's all about repetitive business, loyalty, and accountability, especially to the animals more so than everything. But I really truly believe the vendors today, no discredit, but in the past, they're so much greater, so much stronger. And like you look back over the decades, we've evolved so well. Like, it's professional. It's nice. Optics is everything. Visual is everything. You look at the great shows out there and stuff and the displays that these vendors put on. I'll tell you a quick short story. Is we used to give out the best vendor booth of the year. And some of the vendors got upset because there was one vendor that kept kicking everyone's butt. He kept polishing and polishing because his optics was, and his goal was to see reptiles in all the homes. He wanted to see it go from a blue collar to a white collar hobby. And he's a great guy. And the best part is he took that award every year, smiled, thanked everyone, and mentored so many other vendors. And to this day, when a vendor asks, what do I do next? I'm like, look back at Marcus Jane.
I was just about to say, can you share the name? Because I bet I know it. You're exactly right about Mark Mandick from Marcus Jane is phenomenal. Grant, when I was there, all of this has been, you can attest, has not been rehearsed, but there was one conversation we had in person that actually I wouldn't mind rehashing for just a moment. Very organically and honestly, when I was walking through the show, the reptile displays really, really stood out versus what I would have thought were more traditional pets and sellers. I mean, they're reptile displays and I guess a little bit of the plants, but it stood out to me as just, again, better, whatever, but we may quantify that, but more eye-catching, more professional. Talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you remember that conversation or not when we had it, but it really stood out to me as I was walking about the whole show, the big show.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, reptiles are more of a visual aspect as opposed to a engagement, pet, walk, take it for a stroll, put it in a hamster ball, pet. So really the visual optics is key more than anything for somebody walking through the show. The responsibility and accountability piece is the healthy looking animal. So the encouragement for all the vendors is present it how you'd want to see it. How would you want to see it? Do you go to again, no knock on an industry, a used car sales lot that has cars all smashed up to each other, tight, you can't walk through them, or do you go to a showroom? When you go to a showroom, you may see that car in a different light, but at the end of the day, it's the presentation and optics more than anything. And at the end of the whole picture, the big picture of it all, these are lives.
Right. These
are lives that we took the pride in reproducing for decades. People well before us, created the opportunity to do so. Show that respect to that whole group. Show those, to the Bill Brandts, the Bill Loves, the Bells, right. Some of these people that have passed on that have, that have done so much greatness for us. The Roy Stockwells in Canada, the Tom Hoffs, like these guys are, we owe that to them as they've aged and they created this, foundation for us. Show some greatness out there and some pride in what you're presenting out there.
From a cultural, legal standpoint, what are some of the headwinds that you see and experience and that you're working against that, say, dog owners might not see? And obviously people watching this are probably reptile enthusiasts already. So maybe a little bit of what we can do in your reply as well, or in your thoughts.
Yeah, we're kind of at an advantage and disadvantage. I think a lot of the, let's get something clear. We're all animal rights activists. We're animal rights. The animal rights non-pet people are animal rights too. Everyone's looking out for the best welfare for those pets. They just have a different delivery and a different method of how they do that. What they have above and beyond all of us, though, is organization. They're organized. Are they a community? I don't know, but they're organized. So we have to be better at that. We have to become together more organized. And this is something I really, truly believe a North American group, to come together. As for us personally, we are considered a low-hanging fruit. I think they still are utilizing a lot of old data, misinterpreted data on the quote-unquote wild-caught import world of reptiles. So we have to show them, and this is one thing that we do, is we emphasize our entire event is a captive produced only event. We want to ensure that the only animals going out there are captive produced, ideally Canadian or US based. We want to know that there's accountability back all the way or down. So we're always looking out for that educational component. If someone walks in, simple, stupid bullet points. Here's where you are. We don't go into a big paragraph story. For the display requirements, that's key next. I think that's going to have to come down the pipeline for a lot of shows across Canada and the US, how they're presented. The old school used macaroni dish on display doesn't cut it anymore. Sorry, folks. It has to be a properly locking unit. And we like to use the IATA standards, International Air Traffic Association standards, because we know that if that's being accepted globally as an ability to ship and transport animals, lo and behold, it's got to be presentable on a table. So we encourage vendors to consider that as well. Now, that doesn't mean pillowcasing them. It means good, clean, presentable units. Like, we're fortunate. You think of Brian from ARS and some of these new cage displays coming out. Holy crap, like, that's phenomenal. Right. That's some great pieces. And if you're willing to invest in a Freedom Rack or an ARS rack, you need to invest in the proper displays to present to the general public to move those animals to the next families.
I think you probably, how do I put this? Every advancement is going to have challenges, and there's going to be people that have to evolve. I tend to agree with you on the Deli Cup presentations. I have used it, and every now and again I do use them. I like the square, shiny, clear ones, but I agree it can't look like a flea market, or we're going to be treated like a flea market. And I think something that's very important is how we present ourselves is how we'll be received. And I think sometimes we equate too many dollars and pennies to that overall cause.
I agree.
And are there easier ways around it? Is it just taking a longer term perspective on it? Is it on show promoters? I realize the answer is it's on everybody, but where are some of the biggest opportunities that you see?
I think it really comes down to the community. It's kind of a burdening at times, but before a show opens, I really get a thrill watching other vendors support one another. I really get a thrill watching them lending out the racks or displays to another vendor. Hey, listen, these corns are a little tight in here. Let me give you this waterfall, or let me give you these terrariums and stuff to present. That's the community. So as a group, that's our challenge. How do we come together? How do we come together to create that presence? To show these groups that, hey, listen, you can't pick us off one by one anymore because we're all in it together. We're in it. We're in it because we're part of the pet world, the pet community, whether it's AKC, CKC, TICAS, CCA, KOAC, all these fish clubs around the world. We're in it together, pets, because those anti-pet people are taking off the low-hanging fruit as quick as they can. We just saw this happen in California where they banned all the pet sales in I forget which town it was.
I think it's West Hollywood. I think.
Right? Yeah, like that's crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. And I know you're fortunate. You've got Sandy Moore down there now for Pet Advocacy Network. God bless her. She's probably the best person to take that seat. And that's what we have to worry about is the low-hanging fruit. What they're doing here in Canada is they're taking one at a time. So we're seeing bylaws coming in where, for example, we had a major municipality just create a ban on selling rabbits and guinea pigs. Why? Lowest hanging fruit. What's going to be next? Who knows? Could be hamsters. Who knows? Could be leopard geckos. Who knows? But as a community coming together, we can create a campaign, reach out, advocate, create, God forbid if we could ever put enough money together here in Canada, I'm speaking of, to hire a lobbyist and a full-time person that can just sit there and campaign. We try to do the best we can through CanHerp, our advocacy group here, and through Canadian Pet Expo and our B2B show Connect to share the message as quick as possible. We just had something come through our desk yesterday that Regina is trying to pass a bylaw. So the first thing we do as a team, we message our 6,000 vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a small independent breeder to PetSmart, a large chain, or Pet Value, or whomever, we're like, hey guys, got to get this on the docket. You got to make sure you send in an email. Don't send a template. Send a personal email. Tell them how it's going to impact you, how it's going to impact your animals, and what are they going to do. That's key. That's the community. But at the end of the day, listen, the other group, again, organized, good campaigns, very strategized. And by doing so, they get a lot of the bleeding hearts that'll, they'll will buckets and buckets of money to them. We, as pet people, we don't have that, because what are we doing? We're maintaining our pets. We're giving the pets our best life. So that's all of our extra money goes to.
Right.
But as a group and as a community, we could be better. We need to be better if we're going to, hopefully 2 decades from now, you and I could be sitting there in a rocking chair saying, wow, that next generation, maybe they picked something up and they're stronger now. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see 2 decades from now, people looking back at, pictures on the interweb saying, holy crap, they had reptile expos, like live animals there. Mm-hmm. What happened?
Right.
And that's my goal. My goal is to see this long-term for everybody, for the community, for everyone.
And it's sort of a weird question, or probably difficult to answer, but in a perfect world, or in maybe not a perfect world, in an ideal next step, what does an international organization look like, and what would be, a handful of metrics that would define it as successful for reptile owners, keepers, and pet owners in general, in your opinion? Like, because I know you work hard at this. So what would be some of those goals if there were a Europe, North America international body?
Something, again, pipe dream,
mm-hmm.
something like Pet Advocacy Network, something like old school PieJack USA, PieJack Canada being the umbrella. And there's, basically country reps and then regional reps. And once a year, twice a year, I hate to say it. Thank God for a pandemic, because everybody does video conferences now. You don't need to be in person anymore.
Right. It's more feasible. I mean, this is a perfect example of what we're doing right now.
Exactly. Like, as long as we keep the AI part of it, we're okay. Out of it, I mean. And getting together, have representatives out there, whether they're voted in or et cetera. But it takes money. It takes money, and it takes commitment beyond that money. It takes commitment from every individual pet keeper to manage and monitor what's happening in their municipality, their province, their state, and their country. It's a pain in the butt, don't get me wrong. But we will, in our office, we'll scour as many city postings, provincial postings and stuff, to watch for things, watch for words, and watch for triggers. So in the grand scheme of things, one umbrella breaks out into another smaller tree, which breaks out to even smaller trees. But the key to it all is communication, community, working together, and not backing down. The ostrich approach, it sucked. We did it for years, and we can't do it as a community no more. You can't just bury your head, because we're acceptable pet communities, whether it's reptiles, amphibians, even plants are in that group now. So it's kind of amusing to see that they're attacking plants now, but that's it's crazy. But we have to come together.
That kind of gives me the twitches. That's pretty bizarre.
Oh yeah. Like, if I hear one more thing about invasive plants, then I'm just like, come on guys, think about this.
What do you say to the people within our community that my perception is they choose this, but that disagree so vehemently that they won't work together? Like, if I've got racks and somebody else says I need a 4x2x2, how are we ever going to get on the same page? What do you say to that, to that sort of dynamic?
I think you have to be a little bit open-minded, and you have to be forgetful, and also, that's cool. That's your space. But at the end of the day, always remember that we're all in it for the same reason. That's for the betterment of the animal. That's what we're there for. Whether we keep them in racks, we keep them in large open displays, bio units, or, you're fortunate enough, to be able to provide an outdoor pen 20 feet by 20 feet for your leopard geckos. God bless you. We're all in it for one reason. That's for the betterment of the animal. Keep that as your final goal.
What do you hear from, and I don't know how transparent you could speak on this, but you could speak generally, I would guess. What do you hear from the politicians that you do get FaceTime with? What are their responses or their mindset or maybe even some of their personal feelings?
It's kind of funny. Most of the politicians that we come across now, we always find either immediate family or second generation family, they got a reptile. So,
the actual politician.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, I love it.
Right.
I love it because, you do some research, you find out some great stuff. Social media it's a crusher, but, most of them, I'm going to say the majority of them have some form of reptile in their family dwellings. Every one of them has had some form of positive experience with a reptile via educational component, a vacation, zoo visit, or something like that. So that's something to feed on that way. They're only answering to the campaigns that are being presented to them. Mm-hmm. And again, it comes back to community driven. They're answering to the campaigns that are being put on their desks. They're answering to those lobbyists that are knocking at their door. Otherwise, we're with dogs and cats. But until someone's knocking on their doors, and that's why, again, coming together as a community, if we had the ability to get organized, have our people knocking on the door saying, hey, listen, let's go to a prohibited species list. Let's go to, length and size restrictions. Forget the white list and the positive list. It doesn't work.
Right.
We should be ahead of the game. We should be ahead of it. But again, it's bringing the community together and fund all that and create the right message and presentation.
I think you brought up an interesting point because we often think here's a problem or here's a threat. We have to go attack that threat versus saying, here's our platform that we should be presenting before there's a storm, insert, particular adjective up front, before there's a threat, before there's a problem. How do people do that well? How do people do that effectively?
Having a great communication line and a good community. I always compare it to sports. The retaliation shot is always the one given the penalty. So why can't we be the first to throw the shot? Why can't we be the first at the door and knocking on the doors? Why not? They have municipal, city, and state meetings all the time for all the governing politicians, always. We should have a force or a group that just constantly goes from one to one to one. Make the presentation there. Explain to them, I'm not sure what happens in the U.S., but most of the school boards up here have actually written reptiles within their science and health curriculums. So it's part of the educational component now. So if you all of a sudden create a prohibition on it or a ban on it, you've completely defunct your entire educational component, whether it's maintaining a desert species or actually actively trying to reproduce cresteds or leopard geckos to see the egg hatch, the cycles and stuff. They're pulling them right out of the educational programs. Show the politicians hey, it's important enough that the academics, I've written these into the science curriculum. That there is great. It's nice to have a bunch of letters behind their names, mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when they've already done all the work for us, here you go. Here's your teacher's program. It's already written in there. So again, it takes a lot of people, a lot of great communication, and most importantly, everybody working together in a community and realizing, some people are fortunate enough to do as much as they can, but ultimately it comes to a time where one person can't do it, two people can't do it.
Right.
But and everything costs. I'm sorry to say it, everything costs money one way or another. There's got to be a pool put together.
Yeah, that comes around to sort of one of the points earlier that I was asking about is this gets overwhelming for a small group, especially because of the costs. Whereas if people would commit to some version of it, some version of school, some version of, Lord knows the last thing we need is another reptile podcast, but reaching people somehow in a responsible way. I remember when I started, one of the inspirations for me, which is horrible to say, but there wasn't a very positive online presence of reptiles. And I said, man, there's a wide lane here for education and business content where it's not, two drunk dudes in a basement feeding rats to their snakes for kicks, because that's horrible representation. It's not what it should be. What would you say to we can use my example. I've recently purchased and operate a small commercial building in a small town, and probably half the town. And I beforehand, I spoke to the town planners. I made sure that there were no issues on the horizon. I said, if you want me to invest in your town, I need some assurances that I'm going to be able to run my business. But day to day, I feel like, should I keep a low profile, don't freak anybody out, and just go about my business and do my thing? Or should I slap a great big sign on the front door and hold events and hold, meet and greet or coffees with, ball python, I don't know, some niftier name than that or whatever it might be. You've had the brick and mortar, and I'm sure you've faced municipal headwinds before. What are your thoughts on that?
We were proud with what we did. We had nothing to hide. We wanted people to know that we're here for a committed long time. My wife and I bought our first pet store when we were 18 years old and happened to be the longest running pet shop in Canada. And the first thing I did was create a great sign, great banner. I put 8-foot high cut out, pictured, painted geckos and snakes on the other side of the walls, because at the end of the day, we're nothing to hide. But
right.
Again, no internet back then. So that was old school Yellow Pages days. So what I would encourage is anybody like yourself, don't hide it.
Yeah.
Be present. Because that way, when the next set of series of politicians come in, we didn't know that was there. No, we've been here for a long time. We set precedent, and we're accepting, and we're offering education. We're offering the responsibility, accountability, and we're committed to the growth of the industry, the pet world as we see it. It's important to do that. Don't ostrich it.
Yeah. Thank you. And inspiring gets overused, but that's really encouraging. Like when you put it in those terms, especially the time factor, I'm coming up on a milestone where I'll be able to say to anybody, hey, I've been here a whole year, and you might not have had any clue, but have you seen any reptiles running rampant on your countryside? Have you had complaints of creepy people or whatever else you envision? And probably because you've never experienced it, why don't you come check it out? That's actually a really encouraging point of view, especially with the precedent part of it, because it is a long time. I mean, in one way, a year goes by like that. And another way, people think just so short term, this is going to happen tomorrow if you come here kind of deal.
Yeah. And from a year from what you first envisioned to what you have now, you're probably like, wow, that's a difference, right? What you've created now. So I won't go into it, but it started as a car wash. So it's a very different, it's a very different scene. Yeah. It's pretty neat. And then what on, to bring it, to kind of bring it back to really basics. What are some of the things that you see either at shows or interaction wise, or to potential customers that sellers and breeders could do better, that they're missing on? That's a tough one. I think what we can all do better is long-term accountability. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a scheduled email that goes out to past, present, and future pet families, communication. Just checking in. Hey, how's your snake doing? Is it doing well? Great. Is your gecko, feeding well? Great. Or, hey, you bought something off me a year ago. I just want to make sure you're still good with it and stuff. It's communication. At the same time, it's marketing. Keeping yourself relevant to that happy customer. Keyboard warriors are always, I laugh at them because they're keyboard warriors. God bless them. I'm sure they have a purpose. But the complaints that come to you face to face, those are the ones you can correct.
Right.
As animal people, nobody really has the time to sit there and campaign against someone that's just going to sit there and type away. So it's communication. Make sure you're reaching out, making sure that person goes away with a contact, a business card, an email address that's relevant, and just checking in once in a while.
Something strikes me, and this maybe gets a little bit technical, but I think it's really practical content, or maybe you strike me as having a large database of people that you communicate with regularly. And even in just the input that you just gave, if I sell 250 snakes a year to 250 customers, that could be an overwhelming amount of people to stay in touch with. What are some of the tech that you use? Like literal, I can't imagine there's any conflict of interest in naming good companies. So what are some of the tech that you use to help you keep that organized and keep those things going out?
I have a great team. I'm not gonna lie. I miss my BlackBerry. I'm like, honestly, like if I get a new phone, I have a great team. I'm fortunate. We have a crew. Don't forget, we're putting on 19 events a year.
Yeah.
So, we have a great crew out there completely that does a lot of that stuff. For the general individual, I'll simple it down. QuickBooks, MailChimp, there's all kinds of different email, campaign portals out there, but it's anything other than that, I'm sorry, I can't give you any information.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's fair enough.
I still literally write checks and people laugh at me like, what are you doing? We print that stuff now. Like, really? I write it.
Well, I'll flip it around a different way then. In my own personal experience, we've worked together twice remotely now, once in person, and you've been nothing but transparent with your cell phone number out there to the world.
Yeah. If anybody ever needs any, 905-302-5321. Text me. If I don't answer, text me. And that's the best way to get a hold of me because, anything you need.
No, I think it's fantastic because that takes, it takes a certain confidence. It takes a certain, like you say, pride in what you're doing, nothing to hide, nothing to shy away from, nothing, I'm going to say this and then disappear so nobody can talk to me about it. And in the little bit that I've worked with you and known you for the past couple months now, that's how we organized this today. It was a quick text, and you said, "Yeah, just tell me where," kind of deal. And then we talked about golf for 30 minutes.
Yeah. But that's the way we have to be as a community. We have to support one another. We have to encourage one another and keep that growth going. And I know we had a quick conversation about podcasts and influencers and stuff like that. And that's why I really enjoyed working with you guys. And Chris, I really believe in the presentation you're creating. I really believe in this component you're putting together now. Like that's key. That's what we need. And to circle back on the whole advocacy thing, that's part of the organization. That's part of it. That's part of I make fun about my background here. Like it's blurred. It's just an office.
Yeah.
And it's not a cage. It's not racks. It's nothing like that because we're at that level where, we're talking, and it might be dry as crap to some people, but we're talking about promoting and encouraging the business and the hobby. And I have a real hard time using the word industry because it really desensitizes the entire animal aspect of it, the life aspect of it. But, we touched base on this back of the show. When we first started, we had osteoform calcium, 5-pound bucket of horse calcium that we're dealing out in little bags. I'm sure the high school thought we were selling whatever. And then all of a sudden we got the Power Sun Ultraviolet Twist plant light. We're like, holy crap, we're going to set the world on fire. Now you walk into a retail store. Some stores have 48 linear shelving feet of reptile products.
Right.
They've evolved so much, so great. The community, the business part of it has grown so much. We as human beings have to grow now. And we have to grow as a community. We have to grow stronger together, create stronger links and stronger communication to push back to keep that relevant and keep those stores going and the breeders moving and stuff.
How, maybe this will get me in trouble a little bit.
Probably.
Something we've seen in other industries is the small, I'm a musician. The individual mom and pop owned guitar shop is pretty well gone. There's two big box stores that kind of own the show. It feels a little bit that way in the pet industry. How do you, and again, I'm not trying to throw stones, but is there a benefit to several massive players in the space based on how they behave, or is it what benefits and take or pros and cons have you seen from probably some of the smaller shops that can't compete with the buying ability of the bigger box stores?
I love independent brick and mortar.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I love I'll describe it this way. When your children are sick, if everyone has children, generally before you go line up at the pediatrician, you'll go to the drugstore. You go to the pharmacist. Hey, my kid's got, an earache or something. What do you think it is? Because you're trying to divert that time. Most people will go to their local independent retailer when their pet's not doing well. And they might, hey, you know what? Pooped in the water dish, looks a little runny. Can you help me out? Before they'll go to the vets. And I say this strong-heartedly. The pet retailer today is generally the first line that pet families go to for confidence and encouragement and health. Then they go to the vets because of the cost factor. It's important that the independent retailer or the big box chain store has a good educational component or a good person on staff that has that specialty knowledge and practice more so. You'll find in the independent retailer, the turnover rate of staffing is minimal. So they're there for much longer term relationships. The big box stores, they have the ability to financially invest in some phenomenal protocol and procedures that most stores will follow. And for the majority of the independent retailers, if they could follow those same procedures and protocols, it only strengthens their foundation with the industry and back to the pet parent.
Do you see?
That's a lot. It's so dry, isn't it? Gosh,
I know, but edit
that part.
No,
but it's factual. It's factual. Like you think of the big chains and stuff. Like they literally do fecals on their animals before they go to the store. Most mom and pop retailers don't do that. They base that on the breeders. But it's a strong point.
Do you see the shows that you put on, the breeders and the vendors that are vending at those shows combined with the internet? Is that sort of the new mom and pop brick and mortar outlet?
Yes, very much so. I for years, my wife and I helped people set up stores. We'd go to their stores, put up shelving and put up pegs, and those pegs are a pain in the butt, the slot walls. The pegboards, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, let me help you through an e-commerce website.
Right.
Let me walk you through it. Meanwhile, ours is the worst. But you walk them through it. It's like a mechanic, right? The mechanic's car is always the one breaking down where everyone else is doing. But it's 100% the breeders, and the e-commerce is definitely the go-to now.
I think that's kind of a badge of honor that I think breeders could take I shouldn't say a little more pride in. I think that they should take pride in that mindset. I think a lot do. I think a whole lot of people, when you see their websites, they're really slick. There's obviously various platforms that people can use. And I think that they should think of it that way, as you are the new mom and pop brick and mortar. This is Main Street, and to be that resource. You talked about helping other people set up their stores. Some people might say, well, that's your competition. What are you thinking? What do you say to that mindset?
No, we're in it together.
Yeah.
We're in it together. We're going to grow the community. We're going to grow it all the way around. And you talk about e-commerce, and I'll just circle back on the website. Just remember, when you come to a show, always make sure your website reflects how you present your table. You could have the flashiest, front page, right? But when you come to a show, it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
The train derail. Always make sure it's continuity across the board. But no, we have to help each other. We have to help each other because, Adam, you could be in, I'm not sure where you live. You could be in a small community.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we want to make sure you present it well, because I never know if my customer is going to come to me from you. Hey, Grant, Adam, someone walks into your shop, Adam, you haven't got it. Hey, I know Grant has it. I'm going to pass it over. That's the beauty of a community. That's what it's all about.
Right. And something that does weigh on me, particularly with somebody like yourself, you trusted Chris and I to represent your brand. Like, that's a big responsibility, and vice versa. I mean, I had to say, make sure this is a reputable show promoter, because there are some that have pretty bad reputations, I have to say as well. So I think that the more that the community thinks about that, the better everything gets, with a little bit of ownership and responsibility outside of just the transaction ahead of you. With all that being said, you said you've been at, let's take it all the way back to CRB. You've been at this 30 years. You keep at it, and this whole talk has kind of been about why you keep at it. What do you see in the future? What evolutions do you think you can make? What innovations? You get a chance to iterate on a small basis every 6 or 8 weeks, and then you have your big annual show. What are some of the exciting things that get you going and keep you getting up to go? Like, you're a pretty enthusiastic person, to put it lightly. I mean, you're at it for 30 years. I'm
boring, I think. I don't know what you're going to do with this whole video. But
you go at it. I'll tell you that. Like,
you know what? I tell you, I got one more goal left, and that's to see some type of community group like what you have down in the States, the Pet Advocacy Network. I want to see someone like a Sandy Moore up here. And don't get me wrong, I've reached out to that poor lady so many times. I'm pretty sure she has me blocked. But I think that's the key for Canada. And I want to see something like that. And I want to somehow be part of it, be part of that group to see it come to fruition, to ensure that many generations beyond myself and my wife. I'll tell you a funny story. When I first started my pet store, we were 18 years old. I was a bird guy.
Okay.
My wife was the reptile person. Not many people know that. She's the seed to all this. So, if you ever see Yvonne Crossman, pat her on the back, it's all because of her. And, when I think it was yourself, you said, like, you guys have been doing this for 18, I won't tell you how old I am, but it was 38 years. 38 years, how do you, I'm just a yes guy. My wife says, I say yes, because she has a great vision. But that's my goal. I'd love to see something come together that's an actual group up here that's going to support brick and mortar, chain, breeder. Most importantly, though, the future and the pet families. We have a significant bylaw coming up that we're really taking on head on right now, which is going to, and now I'm taking it down another angle, and not to leave on a sad point, but the age restrictions on pets being purchased no younger than 18. This is an angle that no one ever thought would happen. The anti-pet people were coming pretty hard at us, and we stayed off as long as we could. We never thought they would take out the kids. And if you think about a cycle of life, Lion King, cycle of life, whatever. When you take out the first generation that can never, because, let's face it, when you're 17 to 20, you're not thinking about taking on pets. You're thinking chasing something or cars. And when you take the ability to come out and maintain pets or purchase pets at that interest level, we're going to lose future pet shop owners, future vets, future zoological people, academics, conservationists, because they've never been exposed to that, and it's sad. So that's something that I'm taking head on right now myself to try to kind of push back a little bit on, because think about it. You're 16 years old, you're able to drive a vehicle, but you can't walk into a store to buy a leopard gecko. Explain to me the common sense on that one.
Right. Where can people see what you do, support what you do? Is there a I don't know, in the United States, with 501c or charity or whatever it might be, is there a group that people could check out and help or give you support? How does that work?
You know what? We're a very tight group, CanHerp. We're very small. It's just a group of I call them old timers that are like-minded, that have some great networks to be able to get in there. And we thank everyone for their support at the shows and stuff like that. We don't have a website. We just don't, because we like to keep a lot of our poker hands at chess. But again, all I'll say this in the most sincere way is support your local reptile retailers, support your local reptile expos. Think of the brick and mortar, and remember the key word is community and communication.
Grant, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking time out of clearly a busy schedule and everything you have going on with your shows there in Canada. Thanks for supporting Epic. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you so much. And website-wise, reptilebreedersexpo.ca, reptileexpo.ca. It's all about .ca, folks. But thank you so much, because I know I've said it so many times, and we're all in it together.
Thank you very much. You also on Instagram as well for the for the hip people that are enjoying that, right?
Yeah, my team would know those. I have no idea.
I think it's Reptile Expo.
You got it. There you go.
There it is. I think that's the one it is. See, I got.
You're hip, and I just golf like with the old senior guys. So.
Grant, thank you so much. Audience, you got just a few minutes before the next session starts over at epic.live. You can choose your next session. Thank you so much to the advertisers and the supporters of Epic. And Grant, thank you very, very much. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, guys. God bless.
Thank you.